right, let's get analysis on this now. Dr. Metji Makgoba, political analyst from the University of Limpopo, joins us now via video link to weigh in on the GNU Cabinet relations following the failure to table the budget speech yesterday. Dr. Makgoba, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. So there's been a lot of questions and reflections on the postponement of the budget yesterday, from the speaker to political parties, in fact, calling it unprecedented. Now there's an interesting debate around whether or not the Government of National Unity-led cabinet will be able to show the kind of leadership to overcome this current impasse. We heard yesterday how many of those that are in the GNU saying that it's not only the DA who fought against this VAT increase. It was, in fact, all of the cabinet ministers within the GNU.
I think the cracks will always be there, and they're going to continue, because what I see here, the DA is in the process of decampaigning the ANC. And the ANC on the other side, it's lost, because all the policy they were suggesting was a conservative policy to steal from the poor even more, which aligns with the policy of the DA. But the DA has sort of found this opportunity to grandstand against the ANC. But the stability of the GNU, the so-called GNU, is going to be threatened all the time, because these are parties that come from different spectrums of the political ideologies in South Africa, with the DA being on the far right, the ANC being on the right, and other parties just been in the center moderate and so on. So because they are running through the concept of interest group pluralism, the disagreements are going to be there. And unfortunately, South Africa has not demonstrated capacity within coalition governments to resolve their conflict without a crisis. And I think what we have seen yesterday is a manifestation of that. And this is going to continue, considering that the DA here is in the process of campaigning. And in the process, they want to show to South Africans that the ANC is not a capable political party, and they are here to assist South Africans. On the other side, the ANC is caught napping. They don't know what's happening. They are just confused, because on their side as well, it doesn't seem that they've consulted correctly with other political parties, because they are still behaving that the party that is still ruling. And in all this chaos, unfortunately, this chaos is not going to resolve the country's problems of poverty and inequality, because all the parties that have formed this marriage of convenience are right-wing parties that are nudging towards the promotion of neoliberal capitalism in South Africa.
And some would rather term it a marriage of inconvenience. But just in terms of, the concerns that you've just raised, some quarters, of course, saying that yesterday's development and what we saw is democracy at work. Having a look closer in terms of what we can then expect. I mean, just going forward in a country under a coalition, there's a general consensus that political infighting does not create a sense of stability, does not create a sense of certainty. So at what point will we then start seeing this coalition understanding the culture of coalitions on a national scale and have the right dispute mechanisms in place, or maybe even sustainable ones?
I think it's going to take time, given that all these parties are working together, but they are working together in distrust. They don't trust one another. And given that other political parties here see the opportunity of demonstrating to South Africans that they can do better than the ANC, the contestations are going to always be there, because it's all about competition for PR rather than working together to build the country. And as a result, the cracks are always going to be there, because they are not driven by any political vision to drive development in the country. These are parties that have been factionalized. They have factions within themselves. They are now in a more ideological, fictionalized stage, which means that the cracks are also going to be there, because they wouldn't necessarily be in agreement, because they don't trust one another.
I want to just talk about a point that you raised earlier, just in terms of what the DA is currently doing in terms of it being on a campaign mode for the 2026 local government elections, and the ANC behaving as if it is still leading the country. Just taking a look at some of the contestations now, we know that the DA has taken the ANC to court, or in fact have taken the Expropriation Act matter to court. We know that there's other possible points of contention that will come between those two parties particularly. So what are we then likely to see going forward, before the election that is very important, but also at the same time, while they are trying to make this country work within this GNU?
I think it's still going to be an abusive relationship in which the partners are going to fight among themselves because, firstly, the ANC is afraid to work with other political parties such as the EFF and the MK because these are parties that are on the left. And this is because the ANC is also a conservative political party that has been working closely with capital in South Africa. And on the other side, they are working with the DA, which is also looking at the ANC with skepticism, which means that we're just going to continue seeing these messes because there's no other arrangement in terms of if the relationship is not working, the ANC can look elsewhere. But they find themselves in constraints and they don't seem to be understanding that actually they have other options to actually ditch the DA, but they see themselves as stuck with the DA. And the cracks are always going to be there because they don't want to work with other political parties that they can make their life easier by taking the type of policies that are pro-poor. And because of those reasons, we are still going to see all these problems.
And very quickly, Dr. Makgoba, before I let you go, just on the matter at hand, while a budget postponement is catered for in the PFMA, how confident are you that come the 12th of March and following engagements between cabinet members, that there will be consensus and that the budget will in fact be tabled before the financial year end?
I think given the bone of contentions with regard to the increase on tax and the decrease towards corporate tax as well, I think those are not major issues. The ANC knows that increasing VAT is not an approach that is going to resolve the problems of this country. They understand that actually the problem of this country is that the government has been relying on the private sector to drive development. They've outsourced the political functions of the state to private sector, and that is the situation where they need to look at. Instead of doing the work of restructuring the institutions of government, they want to take shortcuts by even dipping the poor into more poverty. And I don't think it's easy just to say, okay, let's look money from elsewhere and leave fat where it is, or even decreases, because if they understand that the economy is not growing, and the unemployment is very high, what is the point of increasing VAT? Because people are already struggling. They just want to finish them. And that's something that is easy just for them to let go and look for other strategies. But unfortunately, this is a conservative government which has worked very hard in the past 30 years to ensure that capital is doing business freely while the poor are swimming in poverty.